My father-in-law is in prison for trying to kill me. Now I know he was trying to be kind." The boy listened to his mother. 2 days he did not go looking for the woman. On the third night, he found himself outside the house walking into the woods. As he drew closer, he saw the woman's face. Her gold hair shimmered all the way to her knees. Ice blue eyes and a lovely face that glowed with the promise of a forever his mortal brain didn't understand. The woman offered him her hand. Entranced, he reached out and took it. He parked and turned off the engine of the car but still wouldn't look at me. Instead, he stared ahead into the depth of the forest as he told me this eerie tale. The minute he took that hand, the thing claimed him. They found him a year later at the top of a mountain living in a cave, naked and insane, speaking a strange tongue in a language which had to be made up. What was terrifying was that both his legs from his knees downwards were gone. And yet, the wounds had been cauterized and someone or something had clearly been feeding him. His parents brought him home and tried to help him recover his mind. The doctors fitted him with prosthetic legs he kept hidden away. But the boy was never really the same again. When he began to slowly speak again, he spoke of a woman with a skull instead of a face, a long, skeletal crone's body, fangs instead of teeth, clumps of white hair that fell out of her head and milk-white eyes, the eyes of a corpse. And then, finally, the ear-piercing scream. He fell silent then, and my skin crawling, I asked him what happened to him. My father-in-law broke out of his trance and looked at me, his expression unreadable. "Let me show you how to hunt." The trial was short. My father-in-law was caught in possession of my phone and several other items that suggested what he planned to do. His internet search history revealed extensive ways to murder someone. When they put Cameron Joyce in prison, my wife cried herself to sleep every night for a month. I think she blamed me for what happened even though she would never say those words. I would catch her looking out from our apartment in the direction of the forest which we could see clearly. She grew more and more forgetful, wouldn't go to work, would sleep all day. Some days she wouldn't even brush her hair. Her face grew more haggard, and sometimes when I saw her naked form in bed in the moonlight, I could swear I saw her ribs through her translucent skin. Her sadness was going to devour her. And there was nothing I could do about it. One day I came home and she wasn't there. I looked for her everywhere. I don't know how I knew it, but somehow I knew she would be at the cabin. I jumped into my car and sped there at full speed, not caring how many fines I would have to pay. I got there just before dark and I caught sight of her. She was naked, her back to me facing the forest. "Sam." I called her name as I got out of the car. She didn't turn to look at me. Instead she stood there, her messy red hair lifted by the breeze. I called to her again, a deep sense of unease in my bones. "Sam." Slowly, she turned to face me. And that was when I saw her face. A skull. A distended jaw that opened much too wide. That was when she let out an ear-piercing scream. "My father-in-law is in prison for trying to kill me. Now I know he was trying to be kind." A sharp pain burst through my head and I immediately clapped my hands over my ears. I tried screaming my wife's name again, but all I could hear was the shriek that was starting to feel like someone was knifing my brain. My vision swam and I stumbled backward. A dozen figures had appeared from the woods. All of them with skull-like faces, impossibly distended jaws and the same milk-white eyes that had replaced my wife's bright green ones. And they were all walking towards me. I didn't even think. I got into my car and started the engine, my ears bleeding from the sound of the scream. I ran. 2 days later I am couch surfing at a friend's after the doctors had dealt with one perforated eardrum. They told me I was lucky both my eardrums hadn't burst from the volume I was listening to music at. I had just nodded and let them get on with it. There was a ringing in my ears I couldn't quite get rid of no matter how I tried. There was no way I could explain what had happened in those woods to them. I am waiting for the ringing and the headache to stop before I go looking for Sam again. This time I will take a gun. I'll find her and bring her home. I've already spoken to the police, but I know they just aren't as motivated to find her as me. My phone rings and I gingerly held it to my good ear. It's a collect call from the prison. I accept it because who else could possibly give me answers? "It happened, didn't it?" My father-in-law's gruff voice made me nearly drop the phone. I swallowed hard. "Sam's gone," I said numbly. "She's gone back where she belongs," he said. "You're lucky." "How am I lucky?" I asked, bitter anger surging through me. "She was my wife and your daughter." "That thing was no daughter nor a wife. It knows how to mimic being human. Why do you think I told you that story?" His voice was low and even. My jaw dropped. Was he really suggesting he was the boy from the dark fairy tale he has told? "You're cruel. Disowning your daughter, trying to kill me. You should listen to me, boy, and listen good. That creature was dropped at my doorstep a few months after I came home from the forest. It was an infant then and it butchered my parents. I found pieces of them around their cabin for years. It then proceeded to kill everyone related to me. But it wouldn't let me die or kill me, and I couldn't figure out why until I realized it needed me the way a parasite needs its host. Finally, when everyone I loved was dead and buried, it needed more prey. And it found you. It will take pieces of you then keep you alive to take pieces of everyone you love. It will feed on your pain as you live through your own horror show. I swallowed hard. He had lost his damned mind surely. What on earth was he trying to say? If I were you, I would take all my belongings and leave. Leave the state. Hell, leave the country. Don't ever look back, you hear me? Ever. With a sharp click, he hung up. I wish I had listened to him. I wish I hadn't decided that I needed to rescue my wife at any cost. Instead, I am sitting here in the dark inside the old cabin looking outside the window, my fingers folded around the hunting rifle. A sickle moon gleams silver, the only light in a jet-black night. And there inside the darkness, I think I see a figure shimmer. From a distance, she almost looks like my wife. Almost. Until her inhuman skeletal jaw distends. And she screams.